Welcome to the Unibox Podcast. We are an aluminium and LED specialist based in the UK. We believe the best work that we do comes from working with the people closely around us, whether it be architects, interior designers, lighting designers, to achieve the end goal of the design. We've decided to start having some of these conversations properly, to delve deeper into their fields, their specialisms, to learn more about them. No hard sales pitch, just interesting conversations. So let's get into it. Ian, so we know each other.
Yes.
We've dealt with it for quite a bit. What we want to get through today is get deeper into retail, obviously for your experience from both sides of the world.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously it's really interesting, I know you, to see how you've gone from, like, say, that one side of the market to what you do now. So it's interesting to learn that. How have you got to where you are now, I suppose? What's been your step-by-step? I know it probably wouldn't have been an easy step-by-step.
No, but it's been a bit of a meandering route.
Yeah.
I mean, I started as a business development person, and I was in all sorts of areas, particularly started in printing, litho printing, doing brochures. Yeah. Then I got into the retail side, which was mostly point-of-sale temporary design. And then I actually ended up joining Unibox, which I found really beneficial because I'd always worked in the design side. And to work for a manufacturer and really understand some of those manufacturing considerations was useful. Then I worked for a company that did store research, behavioural psychology and design. And to me, that was what really shifted the way I looked at the retail industry. Understanding the mindset of shoppers, understanding behavioural side of things. It was something I'd always been fascinated in without realising there was an actual category and body of work that sort of itemised and identified that. Then I had a job as head of retail innovation for a global marketing company. And it was a step beyond. It was almost like taking all of those things that I had learned and experienced in my sales side and then applying them. And it was an amazing role because it was global. So I actually got to travel the world and see retail around the world, which again was another element of understanding and perspective that had only been theoretical before. And then for the last 6 years being an independent consultant, mostly sort of relying on things like LinkedIn and people I knew to raise awareness and start doing work from there.
Yeah, so it's that step from that, looking at it from that way, where you've gone to that kind of, that out of that manufacturer role into that store planning, you've probably seen the bit that precedes that manufacturing.
Yeah.
Do you see that communication process from that theoretical to manufacturer, how does that step work? Because from a manufacturer's point of view, we kind of get like a make it situation. Yes. Whereas if that story that's been thought out was told to manufacturer sometimes, potentially, do you think that could be an assistance to them, or would that blur lines potentially?
I think anyone that's a vendor or supplier in an industry, the more they know, the better they can understand the end objective. Yeah. Because I'm sure you've had it loads of times. Someone will come along and go, I want this size light box to do this. And you then focused on how do you make the best solution for them based on that. But when you understand their end objective and the whole project, you go, well, actually, that's the wrong product. Yeah. So I always think the bigger the picture it is. Sometimes people think, I haven't got time to explain, or these people don't need to know this. But I always think the best projects, and I'm sure you found that, is where you get all of the key players in the room at the start and everyone understands what's going on, what you're trying to do. You normally get the best out of every individual vendor because they know the part they're playing and where they're trying to sort of move the whole thing at the end as well.
Yeah, so that, I suppose that experience from your point of view, coming from both of these, the vendor, the manufacturer and this marketing agency background, that's set you in this good stead now for what your day-to-day, if you could call it a day-to-day now, because I imagine it's very different on a day-to-day, to look at the world of retail from I suppose like a stepped back point of view now.
I mean, the interesting thing for me is when I started, I thought all of this experience, I'm going to be working with brands and retailers and advising them on their store environment. And I've done that once. And that was designing a marquee for a charity steam train company. So I've not ended up doing what I thought. And I think a lot of people, when they start up, you have this business plan. And from day one, what you actually do goes off at a tangent. My son describes my job as going shopping and taking photos. And annoyingly, he's quite right. I thought we'd be doing all this highbrow advising on what goes on in stores. I'm mostly recounting the trend and the environment and explaining it clients individually, podcasts like this, on stage at events, which is really, really weird. So I've become more of a generalist. But it is still really interesting when you're walking around a store with a client and they're talking about things. You know, the number of times I've made reference to what I learned working in this factory, a little bit about lighting and about production and about structure and implementation. It's proved to be really, really useful, a little bit like I worked in exhibition and events, understanding the design process. Each one of those, I mean, every part of the different bits of my career I have referenced in the last 6 years as a consultant. It's like they've all given me a broader perspective of what goes on in retail and what's involved in creating it.
Yeah, like you say, they put you an early point of sale background.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, sale is the end goal of it all. So
yeah, it's
all that drawn experience in it all.
Yeah.
When you're going into these spaces now to go through with your clients, is it live walks with the customer whose store it is more often than not? And how if you're giving them feedback on something they've obviously invested all that time into, I'm sure it's not always positive.
It is interesting. Yeah, I do a lot with clients where we're going into their own stores. I mean, I am honest, but if I don't like it, it's about being constructive. It's very easy to go on social media and just badmouth things. But I think it's much better to be constructive. You know, the only way as a consultant I can add value is if I don't think something works, is explaining why and suggesting a better alternative. Otherwise, I'm just a shock jock and just trying to get likes from being disruptive. And that's not helpful.
I suppose, so in this kind of, in that vein then, at the moment, are you seeing, in obviously your eyes, do you see a trend that's currently in the market that is out there quite a lot, but isn't really working from your point of view?
Yeah, I was trying to think about this. I think one of the frustrating things I do have is there's this very stereotyped view on the physical space, which is one I love and you guys operate in as well. And a lot of people are all talking about now going, it's all experience. Everything about the physical store is experiential. But it's the biggest sales channel by far. 75% of all global retail sales happen in a store. So the physical store dwarfs all of the other channels. So you still have to sell in a store. Now, admittedly, some stores are more about showcasing an experience. A lot of big flagships in major cities will often showcase the brand and people will then go home and buy, having visited for the day. But most of the time you're shifting stuff. But also, the physical space offers some unique things that none of the digitals can do. You can touch and feel the product, you interact face to face with a human, and you see everything in a store, whereas it's very linear and binary online. So I think there's a real misnomer about how the physical store works. And so many people, you see them, they're posting about it, they go, oh, the store is all about experience. And I'm like, no, you still got to sell shit in the store as well, because this is the place where you're going to get most of your revenue.
Yeah, when you hear this kind of, I think the messaging has changed a little bit over the past years, but when you hear like the high street's dead,
yes,
it is interesting to see that, well, no, it's not. That physical sale still exists.
Yeah.
Might class it as not as profitable because you've not got the overheads of all that store frontage, I suppose, but it is still interesting to see that retail space still has its function, and it is clearly a high ticket function.
Yeah, and there are constantly, you're hearing bad stories about the high street. It's a very easy thing. The media knows that a bad story gets more attention than a good one. You know, that there are some national newspapers that will highlight leading retailer closes this store, and I know that's because they're opening a bigger one around the corner. You know, and you realise they've got 500 stores, and this is a strategic shift, and it's actually a step forward what they're doing. But the store closure gets all the bad publicity. I think COVID helped us appreciate the value of a store because we were denied it. Like we were denied so much social interaction, restaurants, holidays, cinemas. And I think there's a greater appreciation. But I think also we're seeing now that a lot of retailers are recognising that the physical store is almost the hub of their ecosystem that connects to the digital. They're all connected now. You can't measure the success of a store by just money in the till, because you go in the shop and have a good experience, you might buy on the app at home. So that store has contributed to app sales, and likewise a great social media post will drive you into the store. So they're all connected, but the store delivers so much, and like I say, it is the only physical interactive space which allows you to do more as a brand than just being digital. You know, we see Amazon opening stores, you know, the biggest online presence around, and they see the value of doing that sort of thing as well.
Well, from your point of view, talking on an experience point, because I think we've experienced it similarly, that you see a bit more of a quest of that kind of special one-off type piece.
Yeah.
I think I remember doing a walk with you in London, and I remember one store that absolutely nailed the experience stroke shop, which was the Vans store.
Yes, the Vans store.
From your point, if you get that right, is that the best solution, or is it actually you don't want to muddy the waters in your eyes to a degree with it all?
I think you can do amazing one-off pieces, and they will stand out. And you see so many retailers, from a cost point of view, you want to standardise everything you do. And I always think of Aldi. Aldi build their own spaces, so the same footprint, and you can go in every Aldi store and they're virtually identical layout, you know where everything is, and they go for that consistency. But then you will get other brands that can do quite different things. I mean, Nike, for example, have 5 different store concepts. You go in London and there's 4 or 5 different store concepts all within one city. So you can tailor different offers in the same city, but then you will also get retailers that would do unique things. Uniqlo are starting to take over very historical spaces where the merchandising and product is consistent, but they will embrace a beautiful store. Their store in Paris is an old forge with a 40-foot high chimney going out the ceiling. One of the ones in London has an old barber shop in the basement. So you're seeing these unique treatments. Louis Vuitton did a stunning exterior on their store on Bond Street a few years ago. Bright colours, as the only store where they did it. And I think it really is down to what is your audience, what are you trying to say? And I always think the creative brands, after a while you get this collective understanding that they're doing interesting things, which will draw you into any of their stores because there's a positive association with that memory.
Yeah, and that crosses into, like you said, their marketing collateral. It's not just a store at that point with these more focal point areas.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have brands like Gentle Monster, who are this crazy South Korean eyewear brand, and all of their stores are just mad. They used to have one in London on Argyle Street, and the theme was Kung Fu fighting aliens to sell eyewear.
Logical step.
Yeah, I was in their store in Singapore last year, and there's this massive eyeball that blinks. Yeah. They do crazy stuff, but the interesting thing is their stores, the cost of that doesn't come out of capex, it comes out of their marketing budget, because they absolutely understand that their stores are about showcasing. Everyone remembers when they go into a Gentle Monster store. So it's very much an advertising activity as much as the physical structure that's commercial and delivering revenue.
So they're seeing that as their customers doing a degree of their marketing.
Absolutely. Everyone talks about it online. Yeah. You get that ripple effect from everyone else talking about it as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I suppose a big change that you hear about, jump off a little bit, in retail is obviously, we experience it ourselves, of what we do here, is the influence of AI into all these elements. We, being physical, don't come across it a lot. But I suppose you'll see that implemented on the high street a bit more now. Is that something here to stay? Is that going to replace anything? Is it a fad that we're just riding the wave along on at the moment? Or can it be done well?
60-70% of my clients are technology vendors into the retail world. So I'm not an expert in what they do. I've been privy to a lot of conversations. I think AI is one piece of technology that will have a bigger, long-lasting effect than any other. But it is not the future of retail. I think we're just getting through the novelty of it being a new toy, and it's starting to settle into pragmatic implementation. But just referencing the physical store, which is our world, I reference those 3 unique things: touching product, interaction with humans, and being able to see everything. I think where AI add values there is where it enhances those, doesn't replace them. The moment you have an AI-run store with screens on the wall and no humans, you strip away the benefit of the physical store. And I just say, well, why are you paying rent for a website? It's just crazy. And you see these novelty things arrive, but they never last. I think, I've seen really cool stuff. One of my clients uses headsets, store staff headset. They're using AI to help the store staff answer questions, because we have this situation now where, if we've all done it, if we're interested in a product, we'll go online and research it. We might spend a week, 2 weeks researching one product. Then we go into the store and expect the member of staff to be an expert. but they have 500 products in the store. Yeah. We've been an expert for 2 weeks. They're a generalist. So what I love is AI is helping some of these store staff by the store staff being able to literally ask questions or reference, and the information will come through on the headset where AI gives them the answers that allows them to be an expert. Now, to me, what I love is it's not an AI robot talking to the customer, it's AI enabling the human, because that human-to-human contact is one of those unique things in the store. Likewise, understanding stock control. You know, the ability to understand when product's gone. You can use cameras, and then there'll be a notification, we're out of stock of that SKU, we need to replenish it. It's a functional use of AI, and that's where I think the real value is in the physical space. It's not replacing the key assets, it's enhancing them.
Yeah, it's not looking at quick gimmicky wins, it's not replacing the interaction that people are having. I get that point of view. So we looked at AI as potentially, let's not be too mean, but as an overhyped addition to retail. Yeah. At the moment, I say it's a buzz around it. It will level out into a useful thing. Yeah. Do you see anything at the moment that's sitting in retail that's maybe a bit under the surface that you could see coming to the fore soon?
I think one of the things that really frustrates me, and I found this when I was doing the store research and behavioural psychology, is it's quite affordable to gather data now. A lot of people gather it. Everyone talks about data. The problem is data's a pile of numbers. What there isn't enough of is the interpretation and implementation of it, the insight, what I call the so what. 30% of our customers don't go to the back of the store. So I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? What are you going to do about it? And so many people will know the number but won't then activate a solution. Yeah. I remember when I worked at that research company, I had a meeting with a major department store, and they had their insights team, and there were 5 of them there, and they had 95 people in their in-house design team, from architects to visual merchandisers. And they were gathering this data, and I said, how often do you have meetings with the design people? And they were all looking at me like, we've never had a meeting with them. I said, so how do you translate what you learn into a new solution? Yeah. And there was just silence in the room. And you're just like, crikey, there's this siloing effect. And it's almost like data gets held onto, and it should be the start of a process. Yeah. And I see it time and time again going, if you found this bit of insight, found this bit of data, which is a number, how do you translate that into a better solution? Because stores should be constantly evolving. So many people, they spend millions on this store and go, done. The moment you open the doors, things either start going wrong, or they get outdated, or you learn they could be better. And you've got to constantly evolve. And the only way is translating the understanding of what's going on into a better solution.
Yeah, so you give that example you're giving, like that rear 30% of the store, for example. Is that an architectural detail that's splitting it off too much, blocking eye line? Is it signage? Is it that? Is that
exactly
that flow through the store?
Yeah, so if you understand why, then it's like, well, go and fix it.
Yeah, that's your next door solution. Or can you do it in that store?
Do it as soon as you can.
I've seen interesting things in the past about positioning product in stores to make sales, but that's that implementation of that data.
Yeah, you need to understand behaviour, because many years ago, one of the first examples of research and insight I came across was a BP petrol station, and Coca-Cola had got a deal to do a promotion for 2-litre bottles of Coke and Diet Coke, and they put them right by the front door, and it made no impact on sales. They put a camera in and observed, and then you realise that as people have filled their car up, they're walking in and they're like in their pocket, getting their wallet out for the first 5 metres. And then they look up and go to pay. So the problem was people were walking past this display while they were getting their money, moved it back 5 metres, and sales went through the roof. Now, that sounds quite common sense, and I do think a lot of retail understanding, it's half common sense and half just understanding humans. And when I say understanding, realise you can never suss them. They're weird creatures and they do crazy things. So you sort of need to understand that. And I often think a lot of this is just observing. And I often say, retail, it's quite a unique sector. One, if you want to understand what's going on, just walk down the high street. How many other industries can you just walk down and see all your competitors, and they'll even let you into their space so you can see? Yeah. And the other thing is, we are all customers. We're all shoppers. So it's trying to, in the board meeting on a Wednesday afternoon, having discussions, taking that head off and putting your Saturday head on when you are the person you're trying to target. And I know it's an easy thing to say, and I'm an outsider and I have the luxury of that perspective. But it's like, just shift your understanding. What would you do on a Saturday? Think like that. You're able to understand your customer a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I can go back to the walk we did in London. going back to like you say, that kind of retail, the expansion on the high street of the builds that we walk past alone. Like I say, the Uniqlo, I think we walked past one that had opened and they work on a new one.
Yeah.
But that variance from one store to the next, to see how different selling something is, depending on what you're selling, is so varied. Yeah. But the end game is exactly the same.
It is really weird because, like, even in a supermarket, I used to, in my design days, work with loads of different brands that would be doing displays and category communication in supermarkets. And I was working with whiskey and milk, different brands, like category leaders. And the milk category, they were saying standard milk, half a second choosing. It's like green, semi-skim, 2 pint, you put it in your trolley doesn't even stop, you know, and then 10 metres away is the whiskey category where people will spend 75 seconds choosing the product. So there's a lot of emphasis on understanding the customer, but the customer in supermarket will shop milk completely differently to whiskey, to bread, to clothing, you know, and so that same person will invest different times depending on the product in the same store. And then also they will come on different missions into that store. You know, if you think we've all been to a supermarket at lunchtime for a meal deal, they put the sandwiches right by the front because you're not going to walk around a 100,000 square foot store looking for a can of Coke and a packet of crisps. So you want to be really quick. But then you come back on a Wednesday evening doing your weekly shop, and it's all about quality, all about value, because it's expensive feeding your family. And then you're hosting a dinner party at the weekend and you're buying quality ingredients. Same person, same shop, same week. First visit, speed. Second one's value. Third one's quality. And so there are lots of complex layers in that understanding of how people use different spaces and how they'll interact with different products. I mean, to give you an example, I think Tesco's are probably the most insightful and sophisticated retailer in the UK. They started using a company called dunnhumby to gather data, and that's started with the club card. They then bought dunnhumby very cleverly, so that understanding on what goes on. So you will see that Tesco's are really good at positioning things in the right place at the right time. And what I find funny is sometimes people will challenge what a retailer's doing, where we're stopping with a cynical approach, challenging what they're doing, but they have data that proves that putting that in that place works. It's like everyone turns around and says, oh, TV ads don't work on me. Well, what do I say? I don't do that. And then you go down an aisle and for some strange reason you'll gravitate to a product without even thinking why, because that's the one that you've seen their advert 10 times in the last month and it's embedded in your subconscious.
It's got that yellow label next to it.
Yeah. Well, it is.
£18 for non-Club Card members and it's free for Club Card members.
But they understand all those hooks, you know, and that gathering that data of what people are buying, what time of day they're coming in and things like that, you know, and sometimes you've seen applications where they'll even move it around the store at different times of day. And I've worked on projects like that where you're like, okay, you got this unit and at lunchtime, the lunchtime crowd come in, so let's move that, buy the sandwiches because it will sell more then, and then we move it back. Or understanding the psychology around what they call product adjacencies. What's a product that will sit well with this? And there was always a very famous case study that I came across about 25 years ago where in 24-hour supermarkets they would put beer in the nappy aisles. Which sounds crazy until you then imagine the scenario of a new family. It's 2 a.m, they've run out of nappies. Mum sends dad out at 2 a.m. to buy nappies. He's in the aisle, so he rewards himself with a 6-pack of beer for the aggro of having to go out. And this is a proven test case that they were growing beer by sticking it in the nappy aisles in 24-hour supermarkets. Now, when you understand that potential scenario, it makes absolute sense. But without that knowledge of that particular customer and that mission, it's crazy to stick beer in the nappy aisle.
Yeah, exactly. 25 years on, that'd be a very frowned upon element to do, and especially knowing my wife and my kids. If I'd walk back in with nappies and a 6-pack of beer.
Well, the secret is the dad needs to either hide them in the car or leave them out in the outbuilding at the back.
Okay, at least I know no more now.
Well, the next thing, with a supplementary sale is you have a little secret storage unit that the dad buys so he can hide the beer in it as well, so you can take it a step further.
Well, talking 25 years ago, I suppose, if we're going to talk about that. So from your point of view, I mean, even from my, 25 years ago now, retail is absolute worlds apart. You know, I used to work in retail. I used to work in John Lewis. I've worked in Marks and Spencer's. I've worked in, and even walking into John Lewis now from when I worked there, it's not just the store that's changed. I find, like, I used to have to wear a shirt, suit, tie. I was a 16-year-old lad selling suitcases to someone. You go in now, they're all allowed to dress casually. They're all allowed to style it the same.
Yes.
That's one change in retail.
Yeah.
You can't put any pin on what's the biggest shift.
No.
But from your point of view, looking at 25 years to now, what would be the landmark big shift for you, I suppose? Is it the introduction of the internet?
I think so. I think because on many levels you now have a whole load of sales channels that are online. You have apps, you have social media, you have your website. And there's a lot of that that's really growing. Social commerce, selling on social media is becoming massive. You look at the influence of things like TikTok. So that's massive. But also it's the behavioural side. Even when you're in a store, we all get a phone out. You either check a price, or you send a picture to someone, or you seek information. We're even having things like ChatGPT are becoming search engines and price comparison sites, and starting to challenge Google's sort of dominance of that. So I think that side of technology, but the flip side as well is how technology is being used in store. We have retail media, where suddenly you have screens, moving images all around stores, and the ability to adapt. I mean, there's that clip from the Minority Report film with Tom Cruise, which is 20 years old, and Steven Spielberg was quite a visionary there, where he put someone else's eyes in the plot, and he's walking in, and all of the screens are talking to this stranger because they recognise the retinal eye scan, but all of the messages were being personalised by recognising that person. I was in a Boss store on Regent Street, and I was chatting to their retail director. And he said, we've just had a notification that one of our high net worth customers has just walked in the store. And it's a Wi-Fi signal thing. For GDP reasons or GDPR reasons, they don't know who the person is, but they recognise their anonymised Wi-Fi signal that someone who spent £10,000 last year with the brand is in the store. So this is where you're seeing this sort of technology. So I think the technology is really advancing the understanding, the awareness, the operating efficiencies, but also that connection between the store, which was whole of retail, with all these other online channels, and recognising that they're all influencing each other as well.
That digital influence, I think back 10 years, and digital sound like that was going to be the be-all and end-all in retail, everything to be on screens, everything to be... And that doesn't feel to have gripped.
No, it hasn't.
To me. Video walls, you see them in your flagship, and you thought it'd be tablets everywhere, touchscreens everywhere to buy, and that doesn't feel to have gripped. And do you think it ever will at this point now then?
There'll always be a growth. I mean, the e-commerce side is still increasing its share, and like I say, it's about 25% globally. It's not reached its natural saturation point. People think it may be somewhere between 30 and 40% when it sort of levels off. But yeah, you often see, a new idea comes in, everyone throws it into a store, and I put it in the category called just because you can doesn't mean you should, because there is a point when visual noise overwhelms customers. I went into the Sainsbury's store, one of their stores that's trialling retail media in Oxfordshire, and it was like a Las Vegas casino. You had all the hanging signs that were already there, and then you had illuminated headers, and then you had screens, and I took a photograph across the store, and you couldn't see the product for all the messaging. Now what happens is they test that, it goes too far, sales drop or people complain, they pull it back. So every new idea gets overdone, and then it falls back to its natural level. And we're going to see that with AI as well. You'll see where it really makes a difference, and it will be utilised. You'll see where it's a waste of time, and it won't be done. So it does level off. So yeah, you have this sort of weird element with new ideas. Everyone gets overexcited, and then in the end you realise what
potentially in that AI at the moment.
Yes,
potentially.
Yes,
because obviously we deal with the physical, so that digital. But I suppose everyone's got the digital in their hand now.
Yes.
So like you said before, why would you bother putting a touchscreen in the store? Because
my friend Jack Stratton does retail trend stuff, and he says you already have the most used screen in everyone's hand. So why not utilise that more? Because that's the thing we defer to.
Give them a portal in store with the device they've already got.
Exactly. I mean, Nike do that well. The Nike app in their flagship stores is really interesting because you can scan products and learn. You can make purchasing via the app. The moment you zoom in on an image, they capture that and they will tailor the content to you. But for example, you could also go, okay, I want to try this on in store. In the changing room, they already know your size from your buying history, so your size is waiting for you in the store. So that to me is a really practical use of the technology, where the app enhances the physical store experience. So that's when it's good, because it makes your life easier, it's more informative and more relevant as well.
Yeah, I get that. So I just had a really good point then. That was it.
Gone forever.
If we talked about the end, not the start, retail from back in the day, what's changed. How do you see it changing? One thing I've seen a lot of, that we've dipped in and out of, and what I've seen a lot, I see a lot of brands now offering customizations. I think we've seen some Adidas stores, Nike, we've recently Doc Martens. It's the same product, but everyone can make it their own.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's just a bit of a lull of a trend, or do you see anything else coming through that?
I can see that evolving. Personalisation, it's always nice to have a unique thing. Sticking your name on the back of a shirt, changing the colour of the laces in your shoes. It's pretty baseline in big stores, but it doesn't mean, but it's still there, which means it works. It can go a bit further. I went to a Reebok store in Boston, blimey, 6-7 years ago, and in their personalisation area, I saw all those. But there was also a guy called Lou, who would design and make you a bespoke pair of Reeboks, because he'd been designing and making shoes. Bit of a one-off. And I was there, and there was this little 4-year-old girl, and they were making these little dinkies, and she was jumping up and down with excitement. And he was saying they have sneakerheads from the UK flying over in the morning to Boston, sitting down with him 2 hours later, walking out with a unique pair of Reeboks, and then flying back home again. So you can see how personalisation can really sort of move forward like that. So, and I think some personalisation is also more about tailoring an offer and experience in the store more generally, rather than a specific product you can make your own. It's how they understand your buying habits and what you're interested in. When then they go, well, you bought this, would you be interested in these? And that's another thing that Tesco's are doing really well with Clubcard, where a lot of the promotional offers are based around what you buy, not what they're trying to sell, which is, again, engages people more.
So how do you see it, people refining that data-driven approach, potentially?
Yeah, and I also think the connectivity between the channels is going to become more and more sophisticated and relevant. You still have so many businesses where the online offer, price availability and product is different in store, and there's nothing more annoying than getting up on a Saturday morning and going, I want to go into the Arndale Centre, buy a pair of Air Max trainers from Nike. And you go on the website and he goes, they're £100. And you go in store and they're 120 because it was an online only offer. That just annoys people. And you still have companies that do that. They'll have independent teams that are the online or digital team and the physical store team, and they should work together, because you sit back, we all do this, we all go across different channels. We'll use one channel to check and one to buy, or we'll explore, or we buy it on one channel one time and we want to buy it again on another. And if they aren't working seamlessly, it's going to be a problem. And it still astonishes me how many retailers silo the different channels, because your customer doesn't do that. They flit across channels without even thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an online shopper.
Yeah,
I work in retail, but my wife is definitely off we go. We're going to the shops.
Yes.
Similar frustration that she faces. That, or you check online before you go. You get there. Can we have these? Oh no, we haven't got any.
And the worst thing they say is, why don't you buy it online on our website while you're stood in their store, having driven half an hour and paid 10 quid to park your car? And they go, well, we'll just go on our website. And you want to throttle them going, I've got off my arse and driven to your store. I want to buy them now.
Yeah, it does. Leaves a sour taste in the mouth.
It does.
For next time.
It does. And again, when you sit there and go as a customer and you go, I looked at it online, I came in the store, blindingly obvious. And it's just in the marketing meetings and the planning meetings to remember that that's what all of us do on a Saturday morning. So why don't you do that for your own business?
Those online experiences versus store experiences, is the retail experience now, in your eyes, is it a race to the bottom, or do you see brand loyalty? as a shopper's primary source, or
loyalty I think it's a misused word. The only customers I know that are truly loyal are sports fans. You know, you ask a Spurs fan, are they going to leave and start supporting Arsenal now because they're facing relegation? Doesn't work like that. Sorry, I've just put a really strict timeline on this podcast now. But and I'm very sorry if you're a Spurs fan, but tough. But you know what I mean? They're the only truly loyal customer base who will stick with you through thick and thin. I think brand loyalty only works until you give a customer a reason to leave. You put your price up, your availability goes, your quality drops. So the loyalty, I think, is the wrong word. There's an acceptance and tolerance rather than a loyalty. You'll occasionally get the odd super fan, but even super fans can get disillusioned with a brand and leave. You know, look what's happened with BrewDog recently. You know, the people were investing in them and thought they were brilliant, and now they're all disheartened, you know, because it hasn't worked out. So they're not going to stay wearing BrewDog t-shirts. They're going to go to another pub and drink another beer now. So I think loyalty is a real funny one. And you can work on it. It's probably better to talk about community rather than loyalty. A lot of brands build community really well. We see like Rafa Cycling build a wonderful sense of belonging where people come to their cycle clothing stores and they hang out and talk to the staff and they go on rides that are created.
Is that the coffee shop?
Yeah. And they do it really well and it's not about loyalty, because the moment you don't look after that customer or the ride's no good or you stop doing these, they will leave you. Because why should they stay with you? There are alternatives, you know. So you have to constantly work at that. But building real community, I think, really set a sense of belonging with the brand. But the brand has to constantly keep working at that. Gymshark do it really well as well. You know, all the activities that they have in their stores are engaging and fun, and they have a very loyal online base. And their physical store has become a little mecca to experience what they know about.
Yeah, because the one in London, it retails during the day. If I remember rightly, they actually run classes in there at some points during the day as well.
Exactly, and they're all free. You know, there's a gym and you can come and work out for free. Even the main display area at the front on the ground floor can lift up and you do workouts on the floors and things like that. And they work it really, really hard. But you have to keep doing that because so many sports stores have gimmicks like a running track on the floor. And it's just graphics, because you can never run around because there's permanent fixtures. The van store that we visited and talked about, you know, there's a skate ramp there, like a permanent, you know, stone skate ramp, but sections of it move out and they become product display plinths, and then they can move them back in again. So how you work that space is where you create that sense of belonging. And so many people plan it in the boardroom or the marketing room, and then 6 months later, all these wonderful interactive things are sat there gathering dust. So you have to keep it going.
Yeah, you see, loyalty is not potentially what it used to be.
I think community is a better, it's not just a better word, but it's a better focus on what you're trying to do, because loyalty is not a discount card.
No, and it's gone from the day. You can arc back to like sweets, like back in the day, a brand of oven that didn't break for 25 years.
Yes. But that only works until it breaks.
Yeah.
And then it's no good. Because you stating it doesn't do means you failed, you know, which is what I mean. But you talk about nowadays.
That rinse and repeat culture, that kind of ever-changing culture that...
I mean, even Apple got in trouble, didn't they, when they realised that their batches were designed to fail quite quickly, so you had to buy a new phone, you know, and they got caught out for that.
Well, I'm going to date stamp this now as well, because the EU have now insisted that all smartphones have use replaceable batteries moving forward now.
Which is because of that backlash, you know. And so even a company that has this incredible reputation for super high quality, they were actually gaming the process, you know, and I think that's the challenge as a brand. You go, our products last for 25 years, and you got the CFO going, you idiot, people aren't going to buy a new one anymore, you know. And there's that balance between that sort of quality perception, and it's like every toothpaste company, the advert is like 3 centimetres of toothpaste, and then you talk to a dentist and they go, it should be the size of a pea, you know. So everyone wants you to keep using the product and replacing it.
Yeah, that's, I suppose that is, if you went back 60, 70 years, it was like the product is this, it'll last this long, and warranty periods of
and then the flip side is that sort of shrinkflation where, you know, a chocolate bar is now half the size it used to be.
Flat Easter eggs.
Exactly.
That was the biggest bizarre one for me recently. Buying the kids Easter eggs, and it looks from the front nice shaped egg, you take it out and it's
like those sandwiches, isn't it, where they've got like loads of stuff at the front, and then they're like 3/4 of the sandwich at the back is empty.
Piece of cardboard that's hiding the gap in between.
Exactly. So frustrating.
Yeah. So I get the the term loyalty essentially isn't, and that's just culture, I suppose. It's not a shift in brands at that point.
No, not at all.
It is a shift in culture, how we consume.
Yes.
That
but we know everything.
That want it now.
We like I say, we come into a store and we will know more than the staff about certain products because we can literally sit the night before on our phone and become a subject matter expert in that single SKU. And it's very difficult then. And also, if we don't like it, we're on social media complaining. Yeah. Brands are getting cancelled because they get one thing wrong these days.
Yeah. So, from your point of view, looking at changing culture, what we're talking about there, for retail, what is next? I know that's a very broad brush stroke to paint over it, but what is next?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just see that evolution of the connectivity between the channels, a better understanding of customers, how to tailor things to suit individual customers. So I suppose sophistication is the simplest word, sophistication and integration, where there's a better understanding, but also an understanding of what you need to do to surprise and delight and maintain that customer through tailored experiences, but understanding the reasons why. As I said before, people will come into the same shop for different reasons. Some are about price, some are about availability. I always joke about the husband on his way home has forgotten his wedding anniversary. Price is not an issue. Availability is, and understanding those different modes. So I just see that the better understanding of those elements.
So suppose you look at it now, we've got to the point where technology is kind of embedded in. It's there, it's here, it's staying. Digital is there, it's here, it's staying. But it is that kind of bringing them in, like you say, refining that process of the physical.
But interesting to see the physical store. I mean, there are some brands that I describe as wonderfully analog. I mean, Lush I often reference. I think there's 2 screens in their 3-story global flagship. Fern, which is a beautiful fragrance store, not a screen anywhere. Buck Mason, which is my favourite store in the world at the moment in New York, it's not relying on screens. And when I say wonderfully analog, there's a whole load of technology behind the scenes making that work. But you don't have to drown the physical space with showy technology. And there's a right time and place. I'm not anti-technology, but if it enhances the shopping experience at that point in the customer journey, then by all means consider it as an option. But you see so many brands that create these beautiful stores that everyone loves, and it's not an AI fest.
I mean, in that future retail, obviously you've got to look at, like we said, society in that point of view, and society is becoming, everything is like that.
Yeah.
In that physical store, is that a place to slow them down at that point in that decision process?
It can be.
Or are they gearing up to be able to, is all this gearing up of the integration and that, so that decision is made quicker, I suppose?
It will come down to the different missions, because if you're just in a replenishment mode, I need another one of these. If technology makes it quicker, I think a self-checkout till you want a pint of milk. You don't want a whole exploration of a beautiful artisanal organic supermarket. You want a pint of milk. So you need to be able to find it. So there's the wayfinding. Can you find it? You go up, self-checkout, scan it yourself, and you're out the door. So technology has enhanced the process, because suddenly the ability to check out yourself, tap your card, or a place like China, facial recognition, pay, and you're gone. So that's cool. But if you're in an exploration mode where you're going, I want a walking boot, I've never been before, and you go into a store and there's a really well-trained member of staff and they've got those wonderful little bits of floor that you can walk up and down with rocks and stuff, you're spending ages exploring and learning and comparing. So that's a completely different mission to, I just want to get a pint of milk and get out here. So as long as you can tailor those experiences in that way. But I always say one of the secrets of retail is understanding why a customer comes to your store. If you don't know why they're coming or the different reasons, you're guessing. And you own 500 shops, it's a really expensive place to start guessing, especially if you get it wrong.
Sorry. So I suppose, from your point of view at the moment, is there any one brand you see, not to necessarily to be on the high street, I suppose, it could be quite in the background, but a brand that you think's getting it right at the moment? Obviously, from your personal view.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to surprise you by not saying Lush this time. But one brand that, when I read this question, I thought there is one that always came to mind, and that's actually Primark. They're a value retailer. They've been phenomenally successful. their stores, I think, are a real demonstration of understanding customers. You know, you put the product out there, you make it accessible. They use supermarket shopping trolleys. You see people just like handfuls of stuff in. And they've grown into America, which is not an easy thing. A lot of British retailers have tried and failed. The likes of Tesco's and Marks and Spencer's have not been successful in doing that. And they're growing rapidly, particularly across Europe and across the US. But one of the things that really stands out to me is they don't have any e-commerce. Yes. And everyone goes, well, why aren't they doing it? And I love the pragmatism they have, because their business in the store is they will dump a pallet with £5 t-shirts on and everyone turns up and grabs handfuls. Now, if you imagine online with fashion, 30% of products are returned. So someone buys one £5 t-shirt and 30% of those people then send them back. They're not going to make any money doing it. So their e-commerce is a portal for click and collect to drive people into the store to buy. To buy the socks at the till. Exactly, because because click and collect is a footfall driver. Yeah. Like online returns in store is a footfall driver. Well, you go in store and you buy more. It's at the very back of the store when you get there. Exactly. It's that temptation. John Lewis has said, I think every click and collect customer spends on average another £20. Getting people in a store, as we were talking about that peripheral view and availability, if you see more stuff in a store, they get people into the store. Next are brilliant at this. 80% of their online returns are delivered back to store by the customer. One, it saves money, but also they're in the shop and they buy more. Yeah. So Primark are brilliant because they recognise they would lose money doing e-commerce. And everyone's going, oh, why aren't they doing it? And they're going, shut up, come in our stores. And they do. Yeah. You know, when COVID relaxed and the stores reopened, a friend of mine was in London on the first day and he was measuring, counting queues of stores. The biggest store with the biggest queue was Selfridges. The second one was Primark, and he says people were there from 4 a.m. to get back into a Primark store. So that draw of their physical experience is brilliant. People want to go into the store to have a look. They also have no choice because there's no e-commerce, but they're not missing out because they're not doing it. If anything, it's gaining them. They know their customers, they know their business and how it works best. And from their approach, you go into some of their stores and it's not. Oh, they're nicely designed. Some of them are some of the new stores. It's not just like you say, stack of mice. There is still thought, and it's quite interesting. In regards to the States, they're now hitting the Middle East market as well. Yeah, I saw a huge article the other day about they basically. Dubai is one big billboard for Primark at the moment. Yeah. And it's sort of weird because the perception a lot of us have of the Middle East is these beautiful fancy marble shopping malls with Louis Vuitton and Chanel in there. But there's space for Primark as well. There's still space for £2 sports socks. Exactly. So from a brand that's probably doing it right, let's say, because they're really making money, so they're not doing it wrong. Yes. Is the brand that you view as maybe lost their way and doing it wrong at the moment? Because obviously, for a brand to be on the high street or have a retail experience, they've done something right. Yes. But is there anyone you've seen that's starting to do it wrong? Or the biggest one, the biggest fall from grace is Nike. You know, when I started consulting 6 years ago, I wrote a huge in-depth report analysing their store concepts, their social media and their advertising strategy. They were the best example of best practice where you'd have this wow visual theatre, but it was backed up with brilliant merchandising, good product offer. It was like, it wasn't all mouth, no trousers. They were brilliant in every aspect. And then they seemed to lose their way. There were really weird phraseology. I think their stock supply, there were issues on logistics, which is not my world, but the store experience, which I used to come out with going, wow, amazing, I was then starting to find frustrating. Their interaction with customers was legendary. I went to one of their stores in London, and it was quite an interesting idea. They had one of those tabletop screens, and you open the app, and creates a QR code, you connect it, and all of the content will be personalised to you, and it wasn't working. Okay, technology doesn't always work, that's fair. But while I was looking at this, there was a bit of a commotion around the corner, and I turned around, and there were two young kids who got a football, and they were trying to play keepy-uppy, and a member of staff was shouting at them, took the ball away, and kicked them out of the store. Now, the year before, Nike Town in Oxford Street, I watched the member of staff join in with the kids and play keepy-uppy. So to me, that was a mindset. Yeah. And they really have struggled. Some of their store experiences have got better, but even recently, they had the Boston Marathon a couple of weeks ago. I was about to say. And they had the billboard, runners welcome, walkers tolerated. Yeah. I understood that's the sort of thing Nike do. There was a furore, and they changed it. You know, they several years ago supported a guy called Colin Kaepernick, who was a quarterback who didn't take the knee during the national anthem, which is the end of the world in America. You don't mess with the national anthem or the flag. Donald Trump was wading in and criticising him. Nike sponsored him. Yeah. And they were just like...
Yeah, because there's someone with Jewish sponsorship, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they came...
And they took him on board and they had billboards with him, you know. And for better or worse, they were principled and they were not scared to avoid. And watching them change that billboard... I mean, a lot of people got very upset. In my mind, we all knew what they were trying to say. It was about competing and stuff like that. It could be misinterpreted in this modern day and age. There are a lot of people that will find a way to be outraged about something, even though the intention. But changing that was just. I want them to come back and become. They have one of the old veterans now taking over. They were run by a management consultant for many years. They now have one of the old Nike ones, and I think they're going to strip back. Certainly, some of their store experience is starting to gather some of that. That advert was right; shouldn't have changed it, but that was a bit of old Nike. So hopefully, they will reset because they were the best.
Yeah, that's good. So, obviously, over your experience in retail over the years, is there something you see people doing over and over, or trying to do again, or trying to reinvent? Is there just something that you just think, just let this lie now, this can go away?
Well, I think, I mean, one of the things that always bugs me is overly complicated windows. I think, you know, the primary role of any window is to get people to come into the shop. And so many people fill their windows with loads of crap and too many messages, trying to be clever, or they're so obscure you don't understand what they are. And they're just like, come on, I think 3%, on average, 3% of people walking down the street will notice your window. And people get very upset going, that's a 97% failure rate. And I'm going, well, first of all, there's 200 shops on the street. A bit arrogant to think they're all coming for you. But the flip side is, if you can increase the engagement of footfall from 3 to 4, it's not 1% gain, it's 33% gain. You know, the opportunity to improve. And time again, you see a window and are going, you got 400 messages here, you got 3 seconds to grab someone's attention. Simplify this, because if they don't come in the shop, they're not going to buy anything. So it frustrates the hell out of me, because windows have one simple task. And also, it's like test and learn. Foot Asylum are a great example, right? They have semi-transparent LED screens on their Oxford Street store, and they have cameras that face out to the street, and they can count how many people walk down this side of the road, also how many walk down the other side, and then they can look at the footfall conversion ratio, how many of them come in. Right. Now, they, on their global flagship store on Oxford Street, test and learn with content. So they change the content going, does this make a difference? You know, this is so simple, because you ain't going to sell if they don't come in the shop.
Well, that comes back to your earlier point about taking data.
Yeah.
And
actually acting on what you learn. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I suppose people doing, why are we still doing this? This is probably more of a personal thing rather than probably what's what actually is if you could ban something in retail.
Again, it's a functional thing, is long queues at checkout. Okay. The cardinal sin in retail is making it hard for your customer to give you money, because you've done all the hard work. Create the awareness, they've come in, they're selected, they want to pay. We've all been in a restaurant where at the end of the night you're going, woo, and you get frustrated. It's the same in retail. Make it easy to pay, and there's a lot of technology around now. You have self-checkout, so you can check yourself out. You can do it through the app. That members of staff have a phone in their hand, and they can tap to pay and take payments like this. So to me, the worst thing in the world is people walking out and dropping their basket going, I've had enough of waiting. So to me, that's the cardinal sin in retail.
And again, that's that point about making that physical and the human interaction and the technology work. Because I went into a store similar, it was like, don't put your clothes in this box, scans them all, you pay yourself.
Oh, the RFID, yeah.
Yeah, but dropped it all in, you get like there's something doesn't quite work, and then you turn around and there's not a member of staff to be seen.
But the weird thing is, with those automated ones, we have less tolerance. It's like using self-checkout, and either something doesn't register. My wife will buy a packet of paracetamol, and it's so light, and you're sitting there like pressing it down on the magnet, and it's still wet, and you have to call someone. Or you bought alcohol. And it's sort of flattering at my age that they think I might be 17, but it's also bloody annoying as well. So the funny thing is, when the technology automates, our tolerance for it going wrong is exponentially higher than if you're interacting with a human as well.
Yeah, I mean, at least we got a human there. There's someone to take it I think
and they can explain or justify, you can share the pain with them.
Yeah.
The bit of technology that's there to make your life easier is really annoying when it doesn't make your life easier.
Yeah. I mean, my in-laws who can barely open an email, they to the degree can't almost shop in some places now because of that frustration. It isn't just a frustration. It's an impossibility to them.
It is. I think, and also, I think when you introduce a new way of paying, you have to explain, or any new thing, you have to explain. I think Uniqlo do it well in that they have those RFID dump bins. You drop everything in, the RFID measures. But they have an explanation on the wall, but it uses what I call an IKEA-like instructions. So there's cartoon imagery and wording, and ideally, there's always a member of staff as well. So the idea here is you've got communication, explanation and support for a new way. Once you understand, it's straightforward as long as the technology works. But if you suddenly introduce a new bit of technology and there's no explanation, you just alienate customers, like I say, especially at the point of sale.
I'm going to come back to that walk we did with yourself down London and think that is still something, I don't know whether it is under-considered these days, but when you took us in and explained, like, we walked into one shop and it looked incredible, but the messaging, communication just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So as a whole, when you walked in, you're like, this space is incredible, but then the actual backup of the messaging and communication to the customer was almost to a degree non-existent.
Whenever you're introducing something new, assume that the person you're talking to is stupid and lazy. And if you can communicate on that level, it will cover every eventuality. It's not that people are all stupid and lazy. They may be in a rush, or they may be distracted. They may have kids screaming and shouting. There are a lot of legitimate reasons why they don't take the time to, understand. Yeah. But I call it lowest common denominator. Anything new, just make it idiot-proof.
Yeah. So, as we talked about retail changing, if you were entering the world of retail today, I suppose it's maybe better picking a role that you've worked in within retail.
Yeah.
If you were coming in to suppose that kind of, when you're looking more maybe the market side, that physical store experience side, if you were coming into that industry now, what would be your advice to someone doing that now?
Be very curious. As I mentioned before, one of the unique benefits of retail is you can go and see it very easily. Keep going. Most people in retail do not have time to go and visit stores.
Yeah, okay.
That's a reality. It's easy for me when my job is visiting stores to go, you should. But fortunately they don't, so they pay me to help them. So don't all do it because I'll be out of a job. But no, but seriously though, you have that ability to go and look. And the curiosity is look at everything. Like I say, 90% of good retail is understanding humans. So I always think things around that, understanding the behaviours, the quirks, the inconsistency, the emotionally driven nature, and as I said, those different missions. So understand that. When I worked for that company that did research in behavioural psychology, it was like a light bulb went on in my mind, sitting there driving the head of research crazy going, but why? And it's helped me understand a little bit more about how it works. But all that information is accessible, so be absolutely curious. Badger the experienced people, go and have a look for yourself.
Yeah, if you're working in one department, make sure you're in everyone else's pockets as well.
Absolutely as well. But that curiosity will really help.
Okay. So to be fair, I think I was going to ask a question, what kind of skill and mindset would you develop? But I think that kind of bottoms out as well is be inquisitive and curious with it all.
Absolutely. It's such an accessible industry. Yeah. And what I love as well, it's like you go to events and one retailer will be on stage bearing their soul to a room full of other retailers. And you go to these sort of sponsored events and they'll all be sat there sharing war stories and talking about their problems. And I don't know another industry where competitors and compatriots will share problems as well as wins. In fact, they talk more about, we have this issue and this doesn't work and how do you do? And that sharing of ideas and pain and opportunity and challenges is there is a real community sense you see when you particularly go to trade events. They're all in it together.
Yeah, I must admit that obviously we were at your shop together recently and it is amazing how many people you'd look at them and go, they're huge competitors, and then you'd see them.
They're sitting there in a beer
and chatting, and like you say, I think as you can look at the retail industry, there is enough of a pie for I suppose, everyone to have at that point.
Yes, exactly.
So if retail's successful,
we all gain.
We all gain on it. So that's quite an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think, so we don't keep you here for hours and hours and hours, is there probably a question that maybe we should have asked or could have asked, I suppose?
Didn't ask about the flowery shirt.
Well, we know about that. How did you choose the shirt you were going to wear today?
I think, well, interesting people always talk about, I don't want to go on and make it about my flowery shirts, but I always say it's not clever personal branding, it's just terrible fashion sense. And I've hung on to it. I mean, I was wearing them when I worked here 10 years ago. I've not moved for the times.
Well, I must admit, when we did see at your shop and you're walking through in your civilian wear, just a plain T-shirt, it did take us a while to realise who you were for a little bit.
I know. People recognise the shirt, they don't recognise me, which is weird. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a glib answer.
Well, no, it is really great to have you in today. I think from our point of view, working as a manufacturer in all manner of retail, we don't get to see what you see, so it's always great to have a good insight into what's next and hopefully to come. So thanks very much for your time. Thanks for coming.
It's my pleasure. And, you know, I always have a huge soft spot for Unibox. I always have done. Yeah. It's a great company. I love the approach, and I still champion what you do when I talk to people because I love the approach you have in problem solving and delivering things for retailers. So thank you for your time, and thank you for inviting me.
Soundbite that one.
It's true. It is true. Absolutely true.
That's a wrap on this one. Thanks for listening to the Unibox Podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please follow us on social media for more conversations and content like this.